Alright, so we just had a real fun time with technology here, right?
Fun isn't a word you could use for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would describe our relationship with the recording technology over here as the worst thing happening to anyone, anywhere, right now.
In the world right now.
And well, actually, no, let's not. We don't have to go over the top. I think it's the worst thing happening to anyone in New York City. Oh wait, no, I heard the new MTA director is also having a really rough job. Like, just approval numbers are really down. For all the trains. The trains people are riding day in and day out like horses across the expanse of the Old West.
Oh man, I really wish that I was like more bantery right now. I don't really know how one turns that on.
That's fine. I think that when it comes to banter, it's a bit like how you can't smell anything when you've got it. I think also your ability to wisecrack goes down.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like haven't had enough coffee. I don't know. Remember that like bit from 30 Rock? I sure do love French fried potatoes. No, you don't, Oprah.
Oh yeah, the improv thing. Yeah, I think it's a. Also, let it be said that there is something probably innately alienating about the distant form of recording, because I'm gonna peel back the curtain a bit. We're doing a remote call thing right now. We're trying it out for the episode. It's why it's going to sound like we're fucking underwater. And normally we are right the fuck in front of each other. Like I can see the whites of his eyes. I can see the fear.
This from across a table. It's nice. It's sort of intimate. This is I've got a pair of headphones on. They are not great headphones. I bought these like a year ago or so that I could play Overwatch, I'm pretty sure, on my PlayStation with various people. That's as of right now. I never really intended to use these for podcasting, but what is the thing? Lemonade.
Yeah, when life gives you lemons and it can't smell the lemons, make lemonade. And I am using sort of a work type of headset for this. The thing is that it's
enough headsets. It's at least a decent enough headset that Audacity recognizes yours.
It's true. Mine is a.
The computer won't even deign.
Yeah, it has less to do with your headset, I think, and more to do with the Mac version of Audacity just consistently vomiting blood. Like, sometimes I edit this thing at work when I'm not working on a Mac, and the program and Apple just do not play super nice with each other.
Yeah, Apple seems to just hate the idea that you could download Audacity onto it, and just goes out of its way, basically at every turn, to make sure that it does not work at all.
I'm expecting a member of the fucking Corleone family to show up and say, GarageBand is gonna make you an offer you can't refuse. Sorry, everyone, there are only two kinds of Corleone impressions that I would have access to, bad and vaguely racist, and I chose just pure bad.
I mean, was Marlon Brando's accent even an Italian accent? I think it was just Marlon Brando's just doing a voice. I don't know. I don't know if anyone like...
I think it's Marlon Brando.
Italian national, first, second gen, or otherwise, that actually sounds like that.
I think it's Marlon Brando just pretending to have fucking asthma.
I wonder if he did that, but nah, I mean, he lived for several decades after that movie, so I have to imagine he was probably not in the middle of dying, but...
It's nice to imagine, and I don't know, Hollywood people having access to a grade of healthcare unavailable to the rest of us. Like, he could be a fucking cyborg by now if he wanted to.
Oh, I fucking just tasted blood. I had this bottle of my favorite wine. It's kind of like, it was mostly empty, and I just finished it off just like the last couple of drops, and now the fucking blood's in the water because I want to open the second bottle that I got. But wine delivery is expensive, and I'm going to have to conserve that shit just a little bit.
I mean, you're pretty close to a liquor store with what I'd call impressive quarantine measures. Like, they only let one person inside at a time. They practically hose you down.
That's actually pretty... Oh, this is Henry Hart's, right?
Yeah, that Henry Hart's. Okay. It's a place that has a lot of meaning to our many viewers who are in Bay Ridge, New York. Now, speaking of the blood in your mouth, today's subject... well, actually, I should lead in a bit more smoothly than that, but there's a lot of... blood, human misery, etc. in today's subject. You see, with all our expanded times, I thought that Sam and I should expand ourselves, like, spiritually as
I mean,
weeaboos.
historically, what we've been doing is we've been watching the first few episodes of a series, and then giving y'all our impressions on it, which is good for like small conversations, hot takes, that sort of thing. But
Oh, steaming.
steaming.
Inferno.
Is it okay? I thought there was like some term that I was heretofore unaware of. Yes. Steaming. So it's pretty decent for small discussions. Like bullet points, that sort of thing. You can get an okay sense in 3 or 4 episodes of like any strengths that the show has, weaknesses that it has, but you're not really able to take apart its narrative thrust like throughout the entire course of the show.
So
And the
to
reason that we did this is because the two of us have full-time jobs outside of this. We have a limited amount of time to do any sort of recording in any given time. It's actually been something of a chore carving out the I want to say like 5 hours or so necessary to sit down, watch a few episodes of a given show, and then spend a couple of hours recording content that'll then get edited down to like an hour and a half to an hour.
So I thought would give us a bit of a spiritual enlightenment would be to return to the foundry of weebdom and do a little series, not uninterrupted because we want to talk about other shit on the way too. But as long as we are locked the fuck inside, we are going to be watching through the entirety of the original Mobile Suit Gundam
0079.
0079, and as a follow-up, Legend of the fucking Galactic Heroes.
The fucking Mount Everest of mecha shit, even if it is not in fact a mech show.
And I highly expect that halfway through one of these series, a man in a black hood is going to walk up to me from across the desert and try to tempt me off the path.
So this is going to be kind of fun for me. I think you have read the Mobile Suit Gundam the Origin manga, which is the like the manga adaptation of the original series. This is going to be my I want to say third time with 79 here.
Third time.
I want to say third time. I think I first watched it in its entirety because when it originally aired like on Toonami or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I think I caught some of it, but because it aired around 2001. It started airing the summer of 2001. This bit's gonna be full of all sorts of trivia and shit. I did like a little bit of research going into this. It started airing the summer of 2001, and you will never guess what happened in the fall of 2001 that kind of soured broadcasters on the idea of violent children's television.
Ooh, with the 1 year anniversary of Bush Jr. being sworn into office. But yeah, there were also other events.
That happened in February. Yeah.
But yeah, once we started playing Holy Wars: The Punishment Due at double volume, it lost a bit of the flavor.
It got very much shit canned. They tried it twice. It got shit canned twice. The first time because 9/11 had just happened, and the second time because they tried it on Toonami and it just like did not do very well in the numbers. And so we had to wait, honestly, several years until like streaming became a thing. And the streaming now tends to mean streaming services. Streaming then meant theft, questionable legality. Anyway, that was how I first watched this series back when I was I just graduated high school, I believe. I think that was it was the summer after I had graduated high school.
And he looks back on that period and that old country song, "Those were the best years of my life." That might not be country. That might be like the black to white version of some kind of musical microaggression. But whatever.
Oh, you're thinking of Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams is I think the genre that you could call Bryan Adams is, I don't know, like tame white bread 80s something or another.
Is he Toby Keith or AC/DC?
Bryan Adams?
Yeah, which one of those two guys is he?
He's definitely neither of them. I would say I would say if he's like if Bruce Springsteen sucked and didn't actually mean anything when he said things.
To the Brian Adams fans, you can send any feedback to admin@reddit.com. Yes, admin@reddit.com. Just to add a little another sliver of context, for this first episode of The Great Pilgrimage, we did episodes 1 through 8 of Mobile Suit Gundam.
I think Mobile Suit Gundam as a whole is probably going to occupy 5-ish episodes, give or take. If we're going to do it, if we're going to record every 8 episodes, give or take.
Yeah, it depends how long it takes the world to recover from Side 3 slamming into our fucking immune systems.
Man, what is to be at the epicenter, literally the actual epicenter of this in America and now kind of the world too.
Don't let your dreams be memes, kids. You can, in fact, be fucking famous. Though, at least it's better than being at the epicenter of any incident that happens in these first 8 episodes, by the way. The thing that
happened, before these 8 episodes, after these 8 episodes, in any subsequent series. I think if I had to choose a fictional universe that I would like to live in, Mobile Suit Gundam would be so far towards the bottom of the list. I think the only thing that beats it out is maybe Berserk.
And to fucking contextualize this, in my memory of this show, I thought of it as something that sort of leaned into the horrific aspects of war over time and sort of dialed that up. And maybe it does more so, but this thing's fucking first episode has maybe 30 seconds of pre-fuck life.
Just the narrator for the first. I want to say quarter or so of this series. Every episode begins with a little narration explaining how the war, right, the 1-year war, as it is going to end up being called, costs the human race half of its population. 1/2. If you end up watching Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin, the OVA, they go into how exactly they break down the numbers for you and how that ended up happening. Most of it was because of a colony drop, which is to say, a space colony, right? These big cylindrical dudes were that humanity has sort of started to venture out into so that they might live in space, right?
The sort of cylindrical design is familiar too if you're super into old sci-fi novels and stuff. They love playing with that shit.
Buckminster Fuller type shit. Although I don't think I think that's not the right name to drop. It was this one professor at this one Ivy League school, I think, came up with the idea, and they use his design basically.
Someone whose salary your tuition subsidized.
Yes. So you take one of these, you affix some thrusters to it, right? Engines, whatever. You put some heat shielding on it, and you just drop it into orbit and see where it lands. In this case, it was Sydney, Australia. It broke apart in half in atmosphere. The debris sort of just scattered across North America, and then even after the initial impact on both, Sydney, Australia, and just the greater North America, when you factored in the dust that is kicked up, the natural disasters, famine, starvation, disease, etc., it's estimated that this one incident caused the death of half of all life on Earth. And that happens before this series even begins. So this is the world that we are living in right now.
This is the world in which Amuro gets to enjoy his life in his room for, once again, I think all of 30 seconds before things pop off of the giant robots. And that whole scenario that Sam just described in loving erotic detail, once again,
one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen in an anime. Just having the narrator kind of dispassionately break down the numbers for you. That entire episode, fucking masterpiece. But I think I'm only ever going to watch that once. Fuck that.
It doth be like such. But you have to imagine this running on fucking Toonami next to, I don't know, Code Lyoko and Tenchi Muyo. Who's Tenchi going to date this week? Find out after we explore 9/11 times 3 million. And that may have stymied some of Gundam's early growth in the States until fucking Gundam Wing brought the boy bands and drone warfare version of it over.
Well, here's the thing. Timeline thing right here. Gundam 79, they brought over because of the success of Gundam Wing a year earlier. Gundam Wing is tame as fuck. I would say it is
Oh yeah, the
lightest
scale
and
of human
softest.
tragedy in Gundam Wing is like, I don't know, what if the no Russian scene from Call of Duty happened in Mecha World?
Yes.
Whereas in most
Which is,
Gundam
that's
series, there
bad
are
and everything like that, but ooh, man, it's not that bad.
yeah, in Gundam Wing, everything has a sort of genocidal scale implications. By the way, that thing you're talking about, how early they introduced the fact that half of the human population has already gotten ganked in this war,
Hmm.
it kind of makes it unintentionally funny whenever the narrator or a character, and it might just be a translation issue, but whenever someone talks about the war intensifying, all I can say is that's mathematically impossible. They've already killed half of the people.
Well, okay.
Everything
So,
after that is a denouement.
later on, perhaps it's after the fact that this was decided, but it is sort of generally understood, throughout like the fandom in the setting, like in setting canonically, the Mobile Suit Gundam series takes place during the phase of the war where things are kind of winding down. This sort of seems like almost just people kind of bewilderedly looking up from what they've all just done to one another and trying to figure out where to go from there. And yeah, they're still fighting and whatnot, but you sort of just get this sense, especially as the series goes on and finds its feet, that humanity is just so utterly shell shocked by what they've all just done to one another. I mean, the sort of erstwhile main antagonist of the series, a man named Degwin Zabi, who is the sort of the sovereign of the Principality of Zeon. The
It might be
sort of
more
space Nazi-
accurate to describe him as the antagonistic figurehead. If you're saying main antagonist, I think it's Giren screaming, cackling,
Well,
just
that's what I
belting
say,
Hitler quotes into the fucking void.
Oh, sure, but I'm not there yet. That's why I'm calling him the erstwhile main antagonist. He is the guy who, designed this war, right? This was sort of all his, not idea, definitely not his design, but, his doing. He is, who turned Zeon, right, from just another, cluster of space colonies in the Mobile Suit Gundam universe. There are various different clusters of colonies, of several dozen each. These big, long, cylindrical guys, referred to as sides, right? One of these sides, I believe it's side 2. Is it side 2 or 3? I can never.
It's three.
Side 3, has declared independence, dubbed itself the Principality of Zeon, which is sort of this. It's like space Nazi Germany with a sort of I would call it like almost a flowery aesthetic. I don't know. How would you describe the visual look of the Principality of Zeon?
It's kind of like the cultural memory of like a sort of monarchist kind of aesthetic, like a fucking like
Yeah.
what you imagine a fancy French court looks like through the filter of someone who grew up as a Nazi.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good description of it. It's I always sort of
It's got this like pseudo aristocratic thing.
a pseudo aristocratic kind of 18th century sort of aesthetic, repurposed, by postmodern fascists, right? To give the effect of, I don't know.
I mean, the good
Divine,
effect it has is that before
favor.
they've exposition dumped anything, you see them walking around, and you're like, "Oh, that is not a democratic republic."
No. My original point here, right, is that Degwin Zabi, the leader of the Principality of Zeon, is already, by the time the series starts, we don't meet him until later on, but you sort of get the sense that he's kind of just like been like this for a while, is so fucking exhausted of all of this, right? Is so beside himself with guilt and grief and, oh God, what has happened? That he's looking for an end to this. Everyone's looking for an end to this, but they can't really put the genie back in the bottle, right? They've already done this to one another.
Yeah, the genie is atomic. The genie remembers who killed its genie friends in the last skirmish. The genie has the names of its dead comrades tattooed on its arm and is screaming into the void. That's not a scene from Gundam. That's just me riffing, but
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of bigger structure stuff. I think maybe we should hone in on some of the stuff that's particular to these 8 episodes.
Sure, yeah. Although I think it's important to lay some groundwork, just so that the listener who is not too familiar with the context here can sort of have, like I said, a base of knowledge upon which to draw some context from when we're talking about the actual like meat of the series.
That's true, but when it comes to these like starter episodes, though, I think what's interesting to know is they don't really try to dump all this stuff out once actually, which definitely lends a lot to your
That is
watchability.
true.
Right?
I'm talking a whole lot about shit that's revealed later in the series, shit that is revealed in like the novelizations or in side projects, spin-offs, that sort of thing.
And I have to say, it's occasionally kind of fillery, but I was pretty taken with it. Like, I think that good integration into a fantasy or sci-fi setting is often like boiling a frog, and I don't know. I think that a mistake that a lot of mid-tier to low-tier fucking fantasy and sci-fi stuff, and even some good things that just get away with it for others like artistic reasons, is that they tend to work a lot off of I don't know, presumed genre norms, I guess. Like, hey, you've seen this before, you understand this. Come on, let's move on. Or worse yet, maybe the creator's just so in their own head in this setting, they don't understand that there's basic sort of groundwork of understanding to be laid, and this thing
Netflix
doles out
live
its.
action Witcher series has that problem, and that like I think it's so allergic to exposition that it does not understand that exposition is neither a good nor bad thing. It is just a neutral thing that is easy to do wrong, so they don't do it at all.
Oh man, yeah, like that's the fucking tragic side effect of people just crawling out of writers' workshops with the words "exposition bad" tattooed on their arms.
Exposition bad, show don't tell, and then they don't show anything, nor do they tell anything. Just things kind of happen. People talk about things, and nothing makes sense.
God,
Sorry, I'm very disappointed with that show.
I mean, yeah, the way a lot of fucking sci-fi things play with that, or fantasy in this case, since we're dunking on the Witcher adaptation today, which makes sense. It's kind of a bag of dicks, but it would be like if fucking Martians like made up fucking Earth circa World War II as a fucking fantasy setting, and they just never like took the time to explain what fucking gunpowder was, or or where exactly Europe is and why it's so much more important than some other places in this fucking conflict.
Well,
And
since they're Martians and they have no understanding of human morality, they're not even sure who to root for.
yeah.
Right? It's like, who's the bad guy here? Is it French people? Is it these not Z's?
But yeah, this thing starts out sort of keeping this whole space operatic thing that we've been expounding upon at length. It starts out trying to keep it sort of small. You've got
Yeah, it's
like it basically just starts with Amuro's equivalent of a suburb within one of these fucking colony things, just getting dicked by two. I almost said infantrymen, but it's two guys in giant robots.
robot infantry. There's like actual infantry, I guess, with being that does fighting in this war, but they are supremely unimportant at this phase of the fighting.
That is true. That is true. Another thing I noticed in these early episodes is that they spend a lot more time on like infantry, not just mecha, but like people with handguns combat than I remembered in the show, which is interesting.
I think early on, right? Yoshiyuki Tomino, right, who is the mastermind of the whole Gundam franchise. This all comes from his head. He was
Praise the maestro.
Praise the Maestro. He was writing this series more or less as a reaction to the super robot genre, right? That he had been working with, for that entire decade. This comes out in 1979. At the very end of the golden age of super robots, right? Which is
Is it like Mazinger and all that shit?
Mazinger. It's always about just some heroic human kid with a giant robot versus one of two types of antagonists: A supervillain, or B, aliens. And he's coming from this place where these stories do not feel like they're I'm not going to say grounded in reality, but they're very difficult to relate to. They are entertaining, certainly, right? But none of these characters feel at all human. None of these stories have very much of a human element to them. So that is what he's doing in creating the real robot genre, and he very much is responsible for creating the real robot genre.
Yeah, if you're a music head, you might think of like early prog reacting to a sort of pop, or early punk reacting to that sort of Genesis dominance era, and the Gundam is very much a product of that type of reaction. Like someone's looking at the work around them, they don't really feel it has X creative essence anymore, and they took things in a different direction. And I'm
And that's
really
like
glad it happened because it spawned
yeah.
a minor addiction for me. So I need to put together some of those fucking Gunpla things from Japan.
Oh yeah, I've got one or two of those just kicking around. I've got nothing but time to put them together. This actually brings me to the character of Amuro Ray, right?
Mhm.
Who was basically, it's not one to one, but Amuro Ray was Shinji Ikari 25 years before Shinji Ikari. He was, sort of the reaction to the kind of Wonder Bread, like happy-go-lucky, determined, like vaguely determined, loves his friends, etc., etc. Super robot protagonist. They're always very, hot-blooded and everything. And Amuro Ray is literally any teenager who is put into the cockpit of a robot and told, "It literally all depends on you. I'm so sorry."
And to stave off a mode of potential hypocrisy here, I know that I have spent excess time and effort dumping on various franchises that present their protagonists as "it's you," and I think there is a difference between "it's you" and a sort of genuine everyman kind of approach, right?
Amuro is not supposed to be you. He very much can be you, but Amuro is supposed to be any fucking human being in these circumstances. Any, like 15-year-old boy in these circumstances. Like, I remember being 15. I would have fucking died. It's extraordinary that Amuro didn't.
And they do a good job of what then makes him particular is that just the sort of compounding of events throughout the series that are they keep things basically consequential, which is something that definitely a lot of times does not happen with "it's you" because they stay you and they will always be you.
Yeah. I think
now and forevermore.
A thing about Amuro is that when I was first kind of getting into the series, right, Amuro was sort of decried by a number of fans as being what would you call it, like whiny, moody, angsty, or whatever. And I think time has been very kind to this characterization, especially as we start talking a little bit more openly about, the concept of trauma and mental illness and, post-traumatic stress and such, and how it is handled not necessarily, I'm going to say, with aplomb, but the effort is definitely made to sort of show and portray how a teenager is going to react to this situation that he's put in like this.
It's interesting, yeah. Like it's not necessarily one of the series' fixations or things, but it definitely does. I don't know. It takes a pit stop at, oh hey, this kid has to try to kill someone for the first time. He's having some trouble with it.
I think one of my favorite scenes early on in this series is when he comes back from like his first big pitched space battle. Right, he comes back and he's just absolutely fucking exhausted. This battle was like maybe 15 minutes long. I want to say like he was out in space, like just fighting other robots, other human beings, and he understands that they are other human beings. That is the thing. No attempt is ever really made in this series to make it seem like, oh yeah, it's just like robots or whatever.
There is not the Samurai Jack oil splaying in distance kind of thing.
There's anytime another a mobile suit blows up, there's gonna be a good chance that you show, the pilot dying in its cockpit.
It is pretty gruesome at times. Like not gruesome in the slasher sense, but just in terms of like making you feel the death there. I actually wrote in my notes, "Wow, that was on Toonami right after Tenchi in fucking Tokyo."
Tokyo, yeah.
Who's Tenchi-kun going to flirt with this week? Find out now after examining the sins of man in the ever-spiraling chasm of warfare.
Yeah, what I love about that scene is he just exhaustedly just goes to his room, just finds his quarters from the Gundam, like avoids talking to anyone, and just kind of collapses into sort of traumatized half sleep. And I love that. It was a very short little scene, but it did so much, and it's just it kind of just explains everywhere that his character goes, from there. As sort of, yeah, he does somewhat recover, I guess, but he is so forever changed and not for the better. Like you just sort of get the sense that Amuro for the rest of this series and every other subsequent entry that he appears in the franchise, he appears a couple more times throughout the franchise as sort of not necessarily as a main character anymore, as every new series has a new main character, right? But as just kind of an elder character, right? Who's been through this, who knows the score, right?
Well, he isn't in too many of the other series. I mean, he's definitely in Char's Counterattack in a major way, and he's in Zeta for that whole
He's in Zeta
arc.
and Char's Counterattack for the most part. Those are the only two other series that he shows up in. And but the
By the way, if you guys want some weirdness, I saw fucking Char's Counterattack before I even read the origin.
Well, you definitely saw one of the best mech fights ever animated, like still to this day. I mean, and there have been some really, really impressive shit. I'm not trying to be all
it's just funny to think of myself like seeing that fight out of context, like, man, these two really aren't super into each other.
And then you just sort of have to watch. Yeah, no, and then Mobile Suit Gundam is, I don't know, I think once you get through the first series of Mobile Suit Gundam, right? Mobile Suit Gundam is just the story about how these two people's hatred for one another dooms entire generations.
Yeah, the fucking War of the Roses caused global warming. By the way, speaking of Amuro, I thought maybe we should talk a bit about the early episode appearances of one Char Aznavour, who we dedicated an entire fucking episode of this podcast to.
Yeah, so I'll just assume that everyone's listened to that, so I don't have to go like too far into like him and his backstory and everything like that.
Oh yeah, let's table setting of who he is. Just more like what do you think of
well, it's
or
really
just what's like
because
to watch his early appearances, I guess.
Well, early on in this show, right? I go into this show having watched it before, having consumed basically all of the Universal Century timeline, minus I don't think I ever watched one or two of the OVAs. I think, right?
Oh shit! So you've seen like all the one-off movies and stuff, and
I
still see that first MS Team thing.
First, the 8th MS Team. That's a fantastic series. You should see it. I've seen that Stardust Memory. I've seen War in the Pocket. I've seen Thunderbolt at this point. I don't think I watched. No, I didn't see Narrative. I guess I should watch Narrative. It's like kind of a sequel to Unicorn. But whatever. So, just my bona fides right out of the way. Right, like knowing.
Oh yeah, realist mecha fan in the world.
Yeah, knowing what I do about the this particular like setting, right? It's interesting, kind of going into the first 10 episodes or so, right, of the first entry when there is no minutia to immerse oneself in, and kind of see them kind of poking around at what the setting is going to end up looking like. And there's interesting choices that they make early on that they come to sort of revise later on, and things that they make early on that stick very much.
Something that's not quite revised, but they just don't care as much about it anymore. I know this isn't the Char thing, but this is just something that stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
They make a really big point in the early series here that the Gundam is self-learning.
Yes.
And as we get all the psychic main characters and fucking ace types and progression technology, all of that, that is one element of the machine itself that really seems to be de-emphasized later in the series.
Somewhat, it comes to be renamed. I think whenever they talk about like Psychomu and Psycho Frame systems, that is the shorthand that they gave to the whole like self-learning Gundam, like the pilot influences the software and the software influences the pilot sort of thing, because the word new type, right, is not dropped until at the very least halfway through this series, maybe longer. I think like somewhat through the series there's a scene where Amuro has been debriefed, right, by the Federation High Command, and says like, oh yeah, they had to scan my brain waves for some reason. Weird, right? And that's like the first bit of foreshadowing that you get that this is going to be about, slightly weirder shit than we've.
That human evolution might have taken a few left turns on the way to fucking Albuquerque.
Yes. So I think that's what comes of the whole the Gundam and self-learning thing. Although I think definitely he was writing this a little bit as he went along. Like I think. Not entirely, as I do know that he had this whole idea for what the series was going to look like fun fact: early on,
Facts
Amuro
aren't
was going
fun.
to
Learning
die
isn't fun.
halfway through this. Um,
Wait, you say Armor was gonna die halfway through this?
he was going to die halfway through this.
Who's
Yeah.
gonna take the Federation side reins?
Kind of Char, and then he was going to end up being the final bad guy antagonist. What ended up happening is that elements of the original series, of his original draft for this series, ended up being incorporated into Zeta Gundam, because originally they were going to team up with him for a little while, which that is what ends up happening in Zeta Gundam with them and Char. And then Char's counterattack, where he ends up, like taking charge of the entire, Zeon
And
faction and becoming, like humanity's greatest enemy, right?
bold of him to assume he was getting the full 6 seasons and a movie, but I guess you have to have some vision to make things land.
Well, he was all going to do it in one series, right? In one like 4-core show, and this didn't actually even last the full 4 cores. I think this series is 42 episodes long out of a planned 50. It got cut short. It did not get great ratings early on. Like this show, this franchise could have been stillborn. I'm so
You
happy
have
that it
to
was not. But
imagine you are a teenager looking for something to kill time until Fist of the North Star ZX comes on. I made up those 2 letters, whatever. And instead of your fun apocalypse punch 'em ups, you get to learn about the tragedies of human warfare. And there's just a woman sitting down in a field that used to be the town she grew up in, sobbing. That's how episode 8. That's how episode 8 ends, by the way.
yes, it was. I feel like the world was not ready for Mobile Suit Gundam back in 1979, when they're still when we're still in this sort of excited post-Star Wars boom.
By the way, can we? I know I keep pulling this back into particular, but can we talk about that fucking episode?
Oh yeah, it's really good. I think the best episodes of this series are just when you're sort of left with the consequences that war has on just people.
Yeah, almost a short story kind of episodes, and this one, the premise is pretty simple because so they're on their ship, whatever, our variation of the Enterprise. Not accurate. If you're a fan of the thing, you'll probably smack me in the dick the next time you see me in person because I said that. But the point is, main ship of the series, right? And because of circumstances, this thing is loaded down with fucking refugees, which you tend to pick up across the scale of any war that counts civilians on the scorecard. And so they're trying to get these people somewhere safe. And this whole episode is framed around we've been doing all these tactical skirmishes until now, but just trying to get these 8 sort of high-pitched, occasionally whiny but understandably so civilians down to their perceived homelands,
down to terra firma,
on
because
Earth.
They just want to be out of this. They just want to be out of this whole situation, and you can totally empathize with that.
And the whole thing is a bunch of near misses where you're expecting the usual war crimes, but it's almost like one of those fucking hardcore history Dan Carlin asides where it's a human story about the time that they came together to let some families have their way. But then it still has to Gundam you in the left testicle, because the episode ends with her getting to the town she's been talking about fucking fun this entire time, and it is just this crater, basically.
Oh yeah, one of the she was talking about this place called, I think, Saint Kills or something.
Saint Agnes,
like that.
I think.
Saint Agnes or something like that. And then one of the soldiers just casually mentions, "Oh yeah, there used to be a town called Saint Agnes around here."
And it's still here, and there, over there a little,
a little bit over there too.
And I don't know, I just really enjoyed the slow roll of that, and I guess that's the power of having 42 fucking episodes. Kind of makes me wonder about the whole. Sometimes when I see some of the, shows are definitely a lot more focused now, and that definitely benefits them a lot too. And a lot of shows exist in the seasonal format that just would not exist when you had to order the full run of the show.
The full core, yeah.
But sometimes I wonder about losing little asides like this.
Yeah, it was. It definitely seems like the kind of episode or the kind of story that could get cut out of an episode if you had less time to work with it. It's why I have historically sort of preferred the long form series to the short form ones. It's not like you can't do really entertaining things with 1 core or 2 cores. For a while, 2 cores was just the rule, just 26 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of there's still some shows that do the full 2 cores. Vinland Saga, Demon Slayer. They get 2, but for the most part, things get 1 these days.
Chains
and yeah, you can do
down
things.
the mountain.
you can do things with one, but having the full span of 40, 50 episodes, it lets you, if you're good, tell some really interesting little stories with the setting that you're given. We were talking
that was
about
cool.
Char. I want to talk about early Char here for a little bit.
We get the basics early on. He's talked about up as this hotshot pilot, and he's put in an interesting position where, despite all this informed ability, he's facing a neophyte at piloting with just way better gear. It's like you have a styrofoam bat, and the other person has a fucking short sword.
Yeah, and you could be like the hottest shit duelist ever, but you're still just got a styrofoam bat. What I kind of find interesting about early Char, right, in these first couple of episodes when they're just getting started here, still finding their feet, is Char sort of as a character, right? He's comes to be characterized as the archetypical charming sociopath, right? He literally does not give even half of a shit about other people and their problems, right? And honestly, a number of problems in Zeta Gundam sort of come about because of his unwillingness and incapability of giving a shit about other people and their problems.
Incredibly avoidable problems.
Very avoidable problems. However, early on, Char Aznable is more or less just
They go for sort of a father to his men kind of aspect.
Yeah, he seems to care just a little bit more about the men underneath his command than he does, like way
about
later on.
Other humans later on.
Yeah. Well, I think like the turning point for Char's character arc is currently upcoming. It happens, around 12 or so, if I'm remembering right, episodes into the series. And yeah, when we get to that, we'll get to that because it is one of my favorite moments in the history of the medium that is anime.
It's gonna end up being like that episode's gonna be like 30 minutes that scene and I don't know 20 minutes other stuff.
Because it's so fucking great. So Char early on, it's interesting. They actually make one choice that I think they perhaps shouldn't have, which is within the first.
All right, when he does
episodes,
that like hula dance striptease, I found that kind of weird.
Well, he takes a shower. He's he's a shapely sort. No, it's that we learn who he is very quickly on. Like he unmasked within 3 episodes of his introduction, which is something that I think perhaps might not have been the greatest idea.
I don't know. And they haven't even really, once again, in the slow drip of these things, they haven't really introduced that his last name has any real, or his identity has any real relevance, though, right? Like, it's, in theory, and we'll see how they do this, but in theory, the integrity of it as a twist or revealed element might be depending on how they, like, introduce the framing around that, right?
Yeah, I mean, all we know, the information that we are given when he does this, I want to say in episode 3, that sounds about right, it's either 2 or 3, is that he is related in some way or has some, like a relationship with Sayla Mass, who is one of my favorite characters in this series and one of the like best examples of just circumstance robbing us of.
Oh yeah, her real life voice actress unfortunately passed away before a whole wealth of shit they presumably had planned for could have come into effect. My pocket theory is that a lot of her storylines ended up being, if you're into this stuff, carted over to the Minerva Zabi character, like just the surviving monarchist thread kind of thing.
I think there's at least a couple of characters that were invented kind of whole cloth to sort of serve the role she was supposed to have served, because the way it happens, Sayla Mass, right, is the sister of Char Aznable. She is everything he is not. She is just as smart as he is, generally speaking, but is far more empathetic, has far more shits to give about other human beings, and is really just trying to just trying to do the right thing in any given situation.
A lot more helping people, a lot fewer headshot montages.
She sort of functions as like everyone's emotional rock early on in the series. Like I think I've I don't think I ever gave her quite enough credit, but like her just being able to be like, this is not the fucking time for this right now, guys. Um, anytime like Kai Shiden, for instance, wants to dick off. I think she deserves a whole lot of credit for keeping shit together.
By the way, I just want to capture this before we like leave the episode or anything. Since you brought up Kai Shiden, this guy is he's sort of our smarmy. He's sort of like our smarmy. Do I really want to be fighting and dying for nothing? Relatable platform, in my opinion. But he receives the franchises. There's this thing that has a mimetic quality called a bright slap,
The bright slap, yes.
which is a blow from the commander to
Right, Noah.
from the commander Bright Noah to any given underling that's out of
Who
that.
needs to get their shit smacked, right?
And the editing around this first one is wonderful.
Oh, it's so fucking beautiful. It's in the middle of a combat situation. People are dying / have died, and he just has to fucking make a smart remark, and then here comes Bright Noah, the Eternal Captain, from from the right side of the screen, just lays into him with his entire fucking body.
Yeah, like really get that torso torque. You know, like I don't know, you go to one of those fucking McDojos, and maybe if they teach you anything useful, it'll just be like make sure to turn your body with the blow to get some
Yeah,
get some
and
real force behind it.
Kai did not see it coming, so he was not able to roll with that punch. But Bright was certainly able to put all fucking, I don't know, like 150, 160 pounds of his frame into it.
Yeah, it's a fun touch. That said, these early episodes are not perfect. There is a thing within it that it's like you have a nice pie, and inside of that pie, there's a Kandiru. And for me, that Kandiru, and it's another franchise that happens all over the fucking place. You still just have to do to get the show on the fucking network, but just every time you have the fucking, it's time to see what the kids are up to, and there are just these three screeching brats in the middle of these fucking sequences about like war and its consequences.
And then there's these kids, because like the attention span of all the like 5 or like 8, I'm gonna say 8-year-olds watching this, was important to
the onboard kids trope is unfortunately very alive and well in these.
He's there. I don't get it. I think it was handled very nicely, I thought, in Iron-Blooded Orphans, where like it's like, oh god, why are there kids here? Like Iron-Blooded Orphans was this.
Yeah, Iron-Blooded Orphans like it meant something.
It was this great show about like, yeah, why has this franchise been about 15-year-olds? It should maybe not. This is what would happen if it was actually about 15-year-olds. They'd just be dangerous sociopaths.
I remember one of the most annoying sequences to me. People are being accosted by 2 Xeon soldiers with rifles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the kids in a zany sequence stomps on one of their feet, giving Amuro a distraction. Not Amuro, Captain Bright a distraction to float across and lay in some punchies or whatever. That kid should be fucking dead.
The kid should probably it's tiresome. And it never really went away. Like I think there's 3 kids in this, right? And one of them grows up to be Katz Kobayashi, who is somehow even worse when he was a teenager than he is now when he's a kid. And then there was Shinta and Kum from Zeta Gundam, and I feel like they were in Double Zeta too, just in a slightly reduced capacity. And like every fucking franchise, or every fucking entry in this franchise, features at least one goddamn kid.
And
I think
this built-in hole in the armor. They just feel obligated to keep fucking doing it.
The one time it's not annoying was Sai Chi in G Gundam, because that kid ruled.
Yes. Do not put Mr. Saichi in even the same category as these other little fucks. How dare you? How dare you do that on a Christian podcast?
Sai Chi, technically, he's 16, so like he's not even part of this. He's just drawn to look kind of short. But no, I loved that fucking kid. I loved him so much.
Give him the strap.
Give him the strap. No, it is kind of unfortunate that they just kind of always sort of just had to have these fucking kids just floating around. And I remember their legacy in Gundam 00 is this kind of just orphanage's worth of war orphans, right? Who just continue to just show the fuck up throughout that particular series.
Yep.
They sing a song at one point. It's annoying. It's deeply annoying.
The more of this franchise I'm actually exposed to, by the way, I appreciate some of the wacky shit that Double O decided. Let's see how it goes. We do this differently.
Uh huh.
Like I know that was that show had a lot of interesting spins
absolutely.
on things. Sorry.
I
So
mean,
for context for the masses who are being introduced to this for the first time, for at least some proportion of you presumably. Gundam has a lot of these AU alternate universe shows, whatever, that are basically self-contained continuity-wise. Like they're not part of this whole grand space opera universe.
a lot of them feel like retellings of individual stories within the main Universal Century timeline. The Universal Century, by the way, is the name of the main Gundam timeline. Every alternate timeline has its own little name.
By the way, if trying all of this sweeping interactive warfare stuff seems a little daunting, especially in terms of stuff to watch, I actually recommend some of these AU shows as a way to, I don't know, dip your toes into
Get your
the
feet wet, yeah.
ocean.
As I've always maintained that Gundam 00 is the best entry into the franchise, and I honestly, at this point, either Thunderbolt or Mobile Suit Gundam: The Origin are the best two entry points into the Universal Century timeline. Hilariously enough, the first series that they ever made, the first little bit of the Universal Century that we've ever seen, is best appreciated with honestly, like a little bit more background in the series than that. However,
Yeah.
because Thunderbolt is so amazingly accessible and easily, like, quickly watched and digestible and such, you could just do that first.
Oh yeah, so we're going to
I'll
echo
take
our
a couple
recommendation
hours.
of Gunderbelt from our best of 2010s episode
Gunderbolt
because it's
fucking-
just it's a great
God.
show. It's a great
It's so
introduction
fucking
to all
good.
this nonsense.
It feels like the distillation of everything that they have ever been going for with the Gundam franchise, just in terms of tone, message, and effect.
And let's not forget the cool undercurrent. The thing you always sort of also have to get right of these shows. Cool robot go boom.
Cool robots do go boom in Thunderbolt.
Something
and-
I appreciated because this show.
I should also hold on. There's one thing that I want to relating it to Thunderbolt. Jazz. This series has a really interesting soundtrack by, I believe the man's name is let me look it up again. His name is
Takeo Bongo Smith, I believe.
I want to say no, not quite that. His name is Takeo Watanabe. Is the sort of oft forgotten composer of this series music, and for
He puts a lot of
time,
very idiosyncratic jazzy bits throughout the show, and it's really
it was
cool.
the
A lot.
70s in Japan. I kind of like looking at it from the context of, you know, like where Japan was at musically then. Jazz was super fucking huge in the 70s in Japan, and he's bringing that to it.
It's
just
cool a
little
lot of the time. The one time I was saying, "What are you doing?" was so far was I actually wrote this down in episode 8. There was this bongos and horn track playing over this pitched battle.
Yeah, sometimes when they play, you know, like saxophone over, you know, horrible war atrocities happening, it can feel just a little bit strange. But I sort of am of the opinion, like this is the reading that I to give this. Maybe this is not their intention, but, you know, who can ever know what the intention was? That that the choice to use jazz was a choice just to use a genre of music that was particularly popular in Japan at the time. Yeah, and B, there's jazz is this kind of controlled chaos that is not impossible to compare to battle and war. And so I like the idea of using jazz as a soundtrack for war, especially when you have all of these people in it, and there are a lot of people present in the.
We can add this to
franchise.
we can add this to the reasons that Symphogears sucks.
Yes. No. Yes. Simpo who?
Oh, you never heard of Symphogears? Okay, so this was a fucking show. Oh my god. The concept was that there are these idols who could turn on robot armor that's powered by music and friendship and butts.
That sounds like the worst fucking version of Macross I've ever seen. Or I've ever heard of.
So you have to imagine like the soundtrack to Warfare is, I don't know, a bad Kesha B-side. Anyway, but yeah, Symphogears is kind of a ride in a dumpster, and I don't know, maybe some. No, there's too much new bad shit to cover. That's not gonna get an episode. We're never gonna talk about fucking Symphogears again.
Okay. But no, I think Takeo Watanabe's choice to have this soundtrack be all jazzy the way it is was one that ends up being like very influential for the sort of feel of the first decade or so, I want to say, of the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise. Fun fact: he was a mentor of Joe Hisaishi, who, if you don't know, is the
I don't know.
Miyazaki's go-to guy. In
Ah,
terms of
cool.
music. Right, so this is the
When you
guy.
say Miyazaki, do you mean
Hayao Miyazaki, yeah,
okay.
yeah, of Ghibli. Not the Souls guy. I think he usually uses I don't know who his go-to choice is, but I know that the Bloodborne had a fucking kick-ass score. Mm. I like Takeo Watanabe's score for this series, and I especially like the sound and the feel. Yeah, kind of just going over what I was saying before. The sort of feel that it gives the series throughout its infancy. It's the jazzy soundtrack is present in Zeta Gundam. It's present in Gundam Double Zeta. I want to say that it's still there even in Char's Counterattack, like towards the end of the decade.
That makes sense. I mean,
wrong.
change is terrifying, and we do resist it in all its forms. So hopefully they kept that thread going. And
The one thing though is that it's so overshadowed to me, in my mind, though, by the just impossibly fantastic soundtrack that Iron Blooded Orphans had.
oh, dude, that soundtrack like Crescent Moon and everything was pecan. Like it's one of the only like it and Thunder obviously have the only bit of Gundam music I'll seek out separate to the series on.
Yes.
I don't know, to play while I am punching padded bags to try to stay pretty. It's very important to us as audio-based hosts that we stay pretty, by the way. That's one of our primary career objectives. Is there anything else I wanted to go over about these first 8? Oh, I enjoyed this sequence. This is around episode 6 in our 8, where Amuro learns the glory of Korn. Like they sort of this whole series like sort of tracks Amuro's progression from How Do I Shot Web to Walking Death Force.
Just fucking stacking them.
Yeah, and this was a nice break. This was a well delivered break point in that progression. I appreciated that about it.
Oh yeah, I think this is the sequence I was talking about, where afterwards he just exits his mobile suit, and strangely enough does not vomit. I think if I were to offer points on how this series could be improved, I think early on he should vomit more. But yeah, the sequence I said where he exits his mobile suit and goes right the fuck to bed, avoiding all human beings on the way there.
Yeah, there's something to that. I feel like he should have had a cigarette.
But this is what preceded it: just screaming and destroying and shit blowing up.
But yeah, this has been the first step of our walk towards true weeaboo enlightenment. Halfway through Legend of Galactic Heroes, we might just die, by the way. Like, my eyes might just glaze to the black of my head, and I'll just whisper
That is
sweet.
110 episodes, my dude. That's basically an entire season of this show right there, possibly 2.
Yeah, we have...
I think we're definitely going to get it started with this, ongoing catastrophe. But it's probably going to extend far after this is all over.
Yeah, we may have actual wars in space by the time the Great Pilgrimage is done.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been Weeaboo Hell. It's Weeaboo Hell. We like sci-fi a lot more than other things.
It's kind of I think my favorite 3 franchises just of all time. All 3 of them are sci-fi in some capacity or another. Some harder than others.
And thank you for listening. And yes, that is true. By the way, I just started watching fucking Battlestar Galactica.
Ooh, it's good, right?
It is incredible so far.
It's so fucking good. Its first 2 seasons or so are like some of the best fucking sci-fi I've ever seen on television. It gets a little bit obvious as they go on that they're writing this on a week-to-week basis, but that fucking the hell's it called? The mini series that begins the whole thing.
Fucking incredible.
Electrifying. I fucking love it.
There are 12 Cylon models.
No, you're
oh god, the whole fake out. We're on a journey to Earth speech he gives.
The fucking whiteboard with the population listed on it is such a great fucking element. Apparently, so here's a fun thing. One of my favorite, dudes who ever influenced the sort of look and feel of sci-fi. Ralph McQuarrie. He was, he of course designed Darth Vader, right? He also is the guy who designed the original look of the Cylon, which has been very much updated and honestly, damn near abandoned by the time by the time we see by the time this series happens, because mostly the Cylons that you see in Battlestar Galactica are the human looking ones, right? But the Cylon Centurion that you see every now and again, that's an update of Ralph McQuarrie's original design, and he designed, I believe, what the Vipers look like, what the Battlestar itself looks like, all of that sort of shit. This is just sort of like a 21st century update of his original design. So I just love seeing Ralph McQuarrie in things in modern sci-fi. He died a number of years ago. I think it's not quite 10 years ago, and had been retired for a good long time before that. Well,
at least he lives on in our nerd ass hearts.